Hey everybody, how you doing? Charles here once again with another show, and I got my partner in crime, Ryan. How you doing, buddy?
I am feeling fantastic. I feel like the more we do this show, the more my life gets in balance. Because a lot of the things that I didn't know, suddenly now I know, and I actually have an action plan to fix it. And it's not just me Googling things and trying to do it on my own. So the back end of Ryan O'Neill Knight Inc. is a lot more comprehensive thanks to the Black Business Report.
Well, listen, we're getting a lot of great guests coming on, giving us full knowledge, and then we leave here, and then our Zoom meetings are full because everybody's getting the knowledge and knowing them, and like, oh, okay, how do I get into it? So today, who do we got coming on this show?
So I have two powerhouse women. I mean, we've had a stream of them, but these are the two that are going to bring us the confidence from a legal aspect. I've met them and been totally blown away from their expertise, their professionalism, even just how they balance their family life. And as Camille Dundas had told us at the symposium, it's really a blend. There is no work and then life and family. It's how you now blend it together. And I've seen these two women do it masterfully while still being at the top of their game in the legal field. So today we do have Andrea Henry and Tanya Walker from, Andrea Henry Law and Walker Law. And they're going to walk us through how to, I would say, bulletproof our businesses, because there's a good side when you put the contracts and the end days in place of law and if you register properly. And then there's the bad side where shit goes wrong and you get sued or you need to sue somebody else. So we have both sides of the coin today. So I'd love to present Andrea Henry and Tanya Walker.
All right.
Are you allowed to cheer in courts? Will you get kicked out if that happens?
That's the first one. Hit for the second one too.
All right.
Hi, ladies. How are you doing?
Wow. How are you?
I'm good. So Ryan, I got my paper and pen ready. We've been taking notes. See, watch. See, he
already play like line paper, proper. Yeah, ready.
All right. So before we go on, who is Andrea and who is Tanya? Tell us a little bit about you, ladies. Tell us a little bit about your background.
Go first. Okay. So I'm Andrea Henry. I'm from Henry Business Law. I've been a business lawyer for 13 years this month. So I help businesses on the prevention side of things. So making sure that your contracts are in place, that you've got the right structures in place so that you're tax efficient and you're protected, taking care of your intellectual property, all of the preventative stuff. And if you don't come to me, then you end up at Tanya.
Okay, well, before we move on, you got your first message already. So here, someone wanted to say congratulations. There you go.
Thank you.
All right.
All right.
Yes, Tanya, tell us a little bit about yourself as well.
Well, my name is Tanya Walker. I own Walker Law. I started it 10 years ago, and I've been practicing for 14 years. I'm a trial lawyer, but what I love going to court, but I also love helping people settle, resolve their matters, and negotiate. So people usually come to me if they aren't getting along and they need someone to help them solve their problems.
All right. So I'm super glad to have both of you here, because for me personally, my industry since COVID has been blowing up, and the legal aspect is well, like everybody's been asking. So I don't know who would take this one in the matter, but like I do event planning. So a lot of the brides have been canceling, and they're upset, and half of them want their money back. Some of them are, the vendors are not giving money back because it's in the contract. And it's because it's not their fault, because it's not their fault because of them. It's because of the academic. Like, how do we work this out? What's our legal thing for it?
You go.
Okay, so with negotiations, I'm actually speaking about this topic for near the end of the month to the bridal industry. You really have to think about negotiating. And even when a contract, after it's signed, you can negotiate. So when COVID-19 hit, I negotiated almost every single contract we had, whether or not they were signed or not. And yes, you can renegotiate a signed contract, and you just might just say, listen, understand the other person's perspective, but to probably say, I understand, we can't go ahead with what we've planned. What can we do to deal with this? Like, how can we push a date? Can we push a day out? I need the money now that I sent to you for deposit. Could you refund that back to me, or even a part of it, because I need to pay my bills in the meantime? And just negotiate like some kind of agreement to postpone the date, while leaving everyone a little bit happy, because obviously when you negotiated it to begin with, you weren't thinking about the impact of COVID-19.
But then for us,
conversation, not really aggressive, but just have a conversation, and maybe give a little bit more information than you usually would. You might say, this time around, I lost my job, right? So the money I gave to you as a deposit, I really do need that to pay my bills. Is it possible to get that back? Instead of just saying, give it back to me. So it makes people understand your perspective a little bit more, and they're probably going to be willing to work with you a bit more, but negotiate as much as you possibly can.
Because I hear that the way you're structuring is like the approach is very important. And
very important.
But then coming from, you have that expertise and a law firm behind you that if they're like, listen, we don't want to negotiate, they kind of know firepower might be coming after that. But for us, if we're calling, they might feel like, oh, you guys can't really do anything. So as a little guy, how do we still navigate like renegotiating?
Well, I don't see anyone as a little person, but you might want to consider, listen, we can save money, we can save time and money not hiring lawyers. Let's see what we can work out ourselves. And see what you can do to work out a deal. Then you call Andrea and you say, hey, I've worked out a deal. Can you put pen to paper and have it documented? So then if knock on wood, there's not a second wave, but if something else happens, then you are protected.
That's right.
So that's what you would do, and make sure it's written on paper, whatever you decide. Because it's very difficult to prove to a judge a handshake.
That's right. Exactly.
You spend more time. If you invest in Andrea, it's an investment. It's like going to college or university. It's an investment. And so if you invest in her and have her document things, then you save time in the end. Because even if you are in a dispute, you just give me that one sheet of paper that I could show to a judge and say, look at paragraph 9. Now, if you don't have that, I'm getting emails, text messages, and saying, Your Honor, could you please interpret it the way that we want you to interpret it, just based on these 20 pieces of paper? And it takes more time and more money. There's more uncertainty, because it gives a judge more flexibility to, and it's subject to interpretation.
So then if you're a business, and I think this is where Ryan's going, even if you're a small business just starting out, we should always see Andrea first with all of our rules and regulations and our contracts before we have to get to the big dance, as I call it.
Yes, always see Andrea first, because Andrea is an investment. And so Andrea will help you save money in case you later on need to see me. So, and Andrea will know things. It's not just you tell her what you want, but she will know things and suggest things to you that you may have in a contract. Right now, many contracts don't have paragraphs called force majeure.
That's right.
Force majeure is, listen, landlord, please don't hold me in default, because due to COVID-19, I am a non-essential business and I can't pay my rent. If you actually had that paragraph in your lease that said, I am not responsible to pay rent if a pandemic hits and I am deemed a non-essential business, something along those lines, then you don't have to worry about your landlord changing your locks on you. Right?
So this is
someone like Andrea will protect you and save you a lot of money and headache, because now the courts are operating on a limited basis. And so when people come to me, I have to first, number one, tell the judge it's an emergency, and hopefully the judge agrees with me. And then number two, I have to argue it. That's a lot of time and a lot of money, because the last time I did that about near the end of March, my junior and I had to pull an all-nighter to get the materials to the judge, and we ended up succeeding. But just invest in Andrea. That's all I can say.
The funny thing is, COVID has actually been a boost, because quite often when you're engaged on this side of it, the preventative side of it, people may think that you're creating scenarios that would never happen. So I've had, drafting contracts, and clients will say, but do we really need to have this? This makes the contract too long. And I just want something that fits on one page. But you can't get all the protection that you need on one page, right? You can't get a force majeure contract if all you're concerned about is, okay, how much do I pay them and what do they give to me? And so the beauty, or the benefit of working with a lawyer, is that we've seen, because we've had to study for a long time, all the ways in which things can go south. And then we put protections in place to make sure that if things go south, you are protected. Because as Tanya says, if you don't have that and you just have a really bare bones agreement, which doesn't address all of the what ifs, then, and the thing is, in our community, quite often, people will not want to give each other contracts because it comes across as, oh, maybe I don't trust the person, or it's just kind of awkward.
Right.
But really and truly, if you value the relationship, that's why you should have a contract in place. That's the way how I look at it. This relationship is too important to mess up. And so I want to make sure that we are on the same page and that there are no misunderstandings. Because if we leave it to just chance and a handshake, people can genuinely, it's not even that someone's trying to, take advantage of you. People can genuinely misunderstand things, right? So I say, I'm going to provide email support, and you view that as, email support for a year, and I really meant it for a month. You just need to be clear as to what both sides can expect. And that gives Tanya an easier time if someone does breach it, because it's there in black and white what you agreed on.
All right, so hold on. So scenario time. Ryan and I are going into partnership. Okay.
Come to think of it, we do not have a contract.
Exactly. This
partnership.
So Ryan and I are going to go into contract, and then also now the contract says it's for a year, but then we want to keep it going. Is there a way to put in the contract that after the year that we're still partners, but there's time to renegotiate? How do we put that into the contract without dissolving the partnership?
I'm going to step back for a little bit. So if you are creating a partnership, if you're going to have a general partnership, generally speaking, that's something that's going to be long-term, but you can put a year's term on it. But in any contract, you can have something that says this contract would automatically renew unless either party says no. You can say we will revisit it at that time. But generally speaking, general partnerships have really significant legal and tax implications. And Tanya will be able to speak to this, that people end up in partnerships and they don't even know they're in partnerships. But the legal definition is if you pool money and resources into a project and you share the profits and loss, you are in a partnership, regardless of whether you have called it that or not. Mm-hmm. And so if you go into something with kind of the expectation that, oh, we'll just give it we'll give it a trial and see how it goes for a year, during that year, you are fully personally responsible for all of the actions of your business partner with respect to the business. Which is very sobering, right?
Are we married now?
It's a marriage. It's a business marriage.
Right. I think me and Ryan just got married. It's like
you just put a ring on it.
I'm missing mine. And so even with when you're operating and like you said, you're pooling resources to get something done without something being put on paper, you are now bound by that. Like the actions that you've done is bound you. So if you see that you're doing actions with a person, and I'm talking like to everybody watching now, to analyze who you're doing work with and business with, what does that look like? And maybe start thinking about putting a contract in place, because technically you guys are already bound together. Exactly.
Do you know where we see it a lot? In flips. When people put money together to renovate property and they don't think it's a partnership, it is. For CRA's point of view and from the legal point of view, that's a partnership. You put the money in to buy the house and renovate it. When you sell the house, you divide it up. That's a partnership.
Okay, so here's the scenario. Because when I was growing up doing my business, working with this person, he owned the vehicles. We were doing limos. He owned the vehicles, but I did all the marketing. I found the place. We did all together. I set up all the things. So we were together for about 2 years. So that was a partnership then.
Yeah.
Wow.
But then, so my question for Tanya is now, when you've been bound unknowingly with a person and things go south and you feel like you aren't getting your fair share in the agreement or you want to get out of it, and then how do you pursue that because you really didn't have anything on paper? And I know you're saying like without the paper, it makes it difficult to chase a person.
Well, you have the Partnership Act, because the law, they know that not people don't write things down. So the Partnerships Act governs you. So if you are dissolving that relationship and you say, I am entitled to a certain amount of money and the partner will not pay that to you, you can go to court and say, pursuant to the Partnerships Act, please declare we're in a partnership, and as a result, I'm entitled to a certain. You share the profits, you share the loss.
Yes.
Even if two different both of you invest a different amount, what if the partnership dissolves? You get back what you put in, and then you divide whatever's left. Right. So it really isn't fair. Charles, if you put in $10, Ryan puts in $100, that's what you get back. But then you divide whatever's left. So there was a profit, but you only put in $10. It's half of it's yours. It's like a marriage, and that's why you need Andrea, because you need a prenup. So you never break up, right? And it's like an insurance policy. You hope you never get into a car accident, but in case you do, you have it documented how it's going to be dealt with. And it's easier to do that when you're all happy and ready to start a partnership. Then the partnership ends, and then there's this dispute. So you really should get some kind of business prenup. That's what I call it, in case your partnership dissolves. And if it never does, then you don't need it.
Where was Andrea?
That's something I have never seen before. So I am totally a novice with how to now, even we're using ourselves as an example. So we've been doing the podcast, brotherly love. Let's do this thing. Let's get the information out to the world. How do you now revisit and have the conversation with a person that you're partnered with to say, hey, I think that we should put something to paper, and then two, to actually go through the motions and do it right?
Want me to, or you want to go?
I can start. So it really is just about having an open conversation. And ideally, you're in business with someone who you can have frank conversations with. And so I read a quote once that said, your level of success is directly proportional to the number of awkward conversations you're willing to have. So accept that it's going to be an awkward conversation. No one really wants to have that conversation. But if you approach it from a place, what Tanya was talking about earlier in terms of how you approach things. So this is not an aggressive, I don't trust you. This is this business, this relationship is really important to me. And, I would be devastated if something went wrong. I'd like us to make sure that we're on the same page and everything is set out, in black and white so that we're both protected.
Right.
Sorry.
So then here's a funny question. So people come and say they do a contract. Who pays for the contract? People always say, well, you pay for the contract, or you put your name on it and I'll just back it. Is your name being on a piece of paper more valid than the other person's name not being on the piece of paper?
Well, from a court perspective, there is a term that if a contract is a little bit unclear, it's interpreted against the person that wrote the contract, because the thought is the person who wrote it shouldn't make it as clear as possible. So that's from a court's perspective. I think if you are going to agree on some kind of partnership agreement, both partners should pay for the partnership agreement. And you might want to just select one lawyer to assist you and tell the lawyer, this is what I want this is what we both agreed on. We sat down, we had a coffee, and this is what we want in a partnership agreement. Can you just put that in legalese for us? So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, yeah, because I know a lot of people, and Ryan, I guess we always talk about business and people going into partnerships together, and they always wonder who should pay. Well, I paid for this, and I paid for that, you paid for this. But what it sounds like to me, and I could be wrong, it doesn't make a difference who paid for which and what. At the end of the day, you guys are both partners into the business. So if you pay for one thing and the other person pays for the other thing, you're still in partnership together. It doesn't make a difference how much amount each other puts in. You're still in partnership together.
Yes, it's like it's a business marriage. It doesn't matter if you live in a home with your spouse. It doesn't matter who's paying the mortgage or the rent. It's your home, and that's the same thing with a business partnership.
Oh, and something to mention that you had talked about. I sent an email about the Business Law Society creating something for Black-owned businesses, and that I feel like is really important to let the viewers know. But I wasn't sure exactly how it worked, so could you go a bit into what they're putting together for us?
The Ontario Bar Association has they started this some time ago, but it just became alive again. A Black business law clinic. So you just have to. I mean, if you Google the Ontario Bar Association, a Black business law clinic, the information is there for you to find, and that will provide assistance to Black business owners.
Gotcha. Because now I'm thinking, because like Charles was saying, when we're now going to go officially and say, hey, we're going forward with this thing, where do you start? Yes, Andrea's there, but then even before we get to Andrea and say, okay, this is exactly what we need, I'm scared of what Tanya was just saying. Like if I put together a contract and it's unclear, I'm at risk of like getting judgment or losing the case because I was the one trying to put it all together and did it incorrectly. Mm-hmm. So really getting that advice ahead of time to really put your ducks in a row and not have that come back on just an individual that doesn't have legal practice or legal expertise.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and understand the different relationships. There's a difference between a partnership and a corporation, right? So you can be in a partnership, but just have it incorporated. You have different protections.
Yeah.
And so it's important to kind of understand the differences between the different sole proprietorship, partnership, corporation, and then make a decision what is best for both of you.
See, because we've all done this. I get, everybody that's listening right now, everybody's gone in and made their own contracts. You know what I mean? They've made their own contracts. They go, oh, yes. Yeah, this. They've taken apart from this, put it together, look at it and go, yeah, that looks good. And there's also those programs where you pay $30 and you
get like a template or...
Exactly. You put your things in the template. But the way it sounds, Ryan, no, everybody should not be doing that because there's little things that we're missing. Little things that, it's a template, but we're not putting in the key stuff. Like she said in the beginning, if people knew that they could put this COVID, what was it? For the COVID?
Force majeure.
It means superior force. If you can put that paragraph, then it relieves you from your obligations in a time like, it may relieve you from these obligations in a time like this, right?
Wow.
So it may relieve you from paying rent and having the locks changed on you or providing certain services or products because of the pandemic. And you would not be responsible for that because you already have that phrase in your contract. Many contracts do not have it. And so knowing what we know now, any contract that you sign of that nature really should contain something of that superior force paragraph that says if it's superior force, an act of God, whatever, I am not responsible.
Gotcha.
Okay, so let's just go down to the nitty gritty then. Do we come to you and say, this is my business and you give us a contract, or should we tell you what we want in the contract? So for example, Ryan does the detailing for the cars. I'm in entertainment. If we both come to you separately and I says we need a contract for Ryan and a contract for me, do you guys already have these like planned out already, or do we have to give you some information we want in it?
So most lawyers will work from kind of general templates. There's a particular structure to contracts, but the advantage of having a customized contract is that it really can reflect your particular business, right? So when clients come to me, we do a deep dive into their business. What are the relationships they're trying to protect? How does their business work? Just in terms of, for example, what terms are you going to give someone? is intellectual property a really important consideration in your business? So we look at the specifics of your business and then create a contract that works on that. And I just wanted to make a point. You were talking about the templates earlier. So cautionary tale from, I won't name the site, but a client of, there was an example where someone who had a publishing company had gone onto one of these sites and got a contract. And, and we're going to talk a little bit about this on later, but contracts have non-competition and non-solicitation clauses. So this contract had a non-solicitation clause, and it said, you can't solicit any of our employees to work with you after the contract is terminated. Standard clause.
Yeah.
The issue is this company didn't have any employees.
Oh.
Right? It just had authors who were working with it. And so when the authors wanted to get together to compete, the company said, no, you can't do that. We have a non-competition clause, a non-solicitation clause. It didn't apply to them because they weren't employees. Because she just got a random template. I shouldn't say random. She got a cheap template, right? And there are different levels of templates, but this is the issue with understanding your business. For someone who has a business that has lots of employees, that clause made sense, but it didn't make sense for her business.
And a lawyer asking that question is like, oh, you have this paragraph in here about employees. How many employees do you have? And then they'd be like, oh, I don't have any. Like,
exactly.
Well, this does not make sense.
That's what we're charging for, knowing what questions to ask.
Yeah.
Okay. So say we have a contract. Say we put it together and they still want to fight us on it. Then that's when we come over to you, Tanya, and say, listen, we went to Andrea. We have this contract. Here's my contract, but this is what they're claiming that they want to sue me for. Is it possible, or do I have to fight it?
No, that's the way you would approach me. And then I would say, I would suggest that we have a settlement meeting before anybody sues anybody and things get out of control. And so I would then get your instructions to try to schedule a settlement meeting. We would participate in one. We would be as prepared as possible, because when you're prepared and the other side isn't, things usually go your way. So what I usually do is like prepare a draft release, draft minutes of settlement, and it's like kind of buying a house. You don't go in with your bottom line. You have room for negotiation. You don't tell them what the room is, but you don't go in with your bottom line. And so if you say to them, listen, I'm here, I'm ready to settle, here's a copy of my draft settlement agreement. Guess what happens if they don't have theirs? They start working off yours.
Yeah.
And so you end up, and then when they want to edit it, who edits it? It's me. So I have control. And so the person who has more control is the person who's more likely to get what they want. And usually I always recommend a settlement meeting before things just go out of hand. Mm-hmm. And then litigation's really, if you can't, you've tried your hardest, but you can't resolve it.
And you can do that right in the contract. I put speed bumps in my contracts on the way to court. So before we go to court, we have to try these things. Maybe mediation is something that you try first, right? Negotiation is something that you try first, because you don't want to have to go to court unless you really, really have no choice.
Okay.
I hope people heard that message right there.
Trust me.
You need to have control.
Yeah.
You can't go into something winging it. And that's where understanding one ahead of time, putting these things in place is going to reduce a lot of that risk. But I never even thought of, listen, before it gets out of control, here are the ways that we're going to try and settle this. And like what Tanya was saying, a settlement meeting, now being fully prepared just for that allows you to control the outcome of it. If you're coming in saying like, yeah, I want a settlement, but you're not prepared, then you're at the whim, or you have no leverage in this negotiation. And I feel like even as a full community, we're seeing where we don't have leverage and where we need to take back control to really dictate the outcome that we want. And I mean, I get too much homework on this show. Let's go back to the drawing board.
Let's go back to because Ryan and I are always forcing everybody, not forcing, but we tell them, when you have an entrepreneur business, you have power. Entrepreneur business, you have more power. But what I'm realizing is when I first started, no one told me about a couple of things, like going to you, like my insurance for my company. So here's a question. When someone's first starting out in business, I think learning from you guys now that two key things that they need to put in opening up a business is seeing you for their contract. For whatever business they own, contract should be number one in their business as well. Right? That's what I'm finding out, because at the end of the day, if you have a partnership later on or something happens, you should be covered. So my question to you is your contract and insurance kind of the same thing? Do they go hand in hand, or do we meet you guys separately? So for example, when I get my insurance for my company, I get insurance that covers me for $10 million. So then when I come to you and says, listen, I'm insured for 10 million, is that something you need to know for the contract?
Well, I would always advise you to get insurance anyway. The three things I think everyone needs when they're starting: you need to have a consultation with a lawyer, you need to have a consultation with an accountant, and you need to speak to your insurance broker before you do anything else. Insurance is another form of protection. Contracts are a form of protection. Insurance is a form of protection. Incorporating is a form of protection. They're just different ways to protect your business. And the thing with insurance is you can have insurance with high liability limits. Those policies have a ton of fine print about what they will cover and what they will not cover, right? So my attitude is best to have things set out in writing with whoever the other party is. You have your insurance and you also have your incorporation so that you've got limited liability protection, and that way you're completely covered.
Gotcha.
Okay. Listen, we could be talking about this all day because my ink has a lot of ink in it, but we gotta go to the Zoom meeting. So everybody that's watching right now, we had a lot of comments. Join us in the Zoom meeting. It's in the description. You can head over there now. These two lovely ladies are going to go in there. They have a full presentation to give us more information, how we can cover ourselves, what we need to do, what we need to think about. Because Ryan, I don't know about you, but it's light bulb came on a couple of times.
Dude, preparation is key. It's one thing that I learned in my interaction with Andrea and Tanya. Being prepared, being professional puts you on another level. Like when you're just winging it and trying to just kind of, talk your way through life, it doesn't work. And that is not enforceable by law. Get the paper. Get your paper. Listen.
People will take you more seriously, especially if you're trying to get big, if you're trying to grow your business and get bigger clients, people will take you more seriously when you're well prepared.
Well, Tanya, Andrea, thank you so much for taking this time to talk to us. We'll see you over in the Zoom meeting. It's in the chat, so you can click on that right now, and we'll meet you over into the Zoom meeting.
All right.
Yeah, man. Wow.
Dude, clarity is key.
Man,
I'm totally guilty of this. I don't like contracts because I feel like, listen, I trust people and I would expect them to trust me. Yeah. But just allowing it to make sure that everybody understands what you're supposed to do and what they're supposed to do. To me, that is a win. And that's a way to approach it.
The main thing I got from this, back in the day when I was starting out, how many people I helped out or went into business with, not going into business with, but helping, you know what I mean?
Yes.
But we were in business.
Yes.
Yeah, like a lot of people in the industry, in the event industry, worked together for years and we built things together and then realized that we were making the money together, not he was making the money. You know what I mean? Because it was a partnership business.
True. And then you feel like, you don't have any recourse because you didn't put anything on paper, so you just walk away from it. When you did have a viable way to go after what you were owed, what you were due. Yeah.
Because, like she said, I could have showed the advertising, the websites, the name, all that stuff. But like you said,
everything that you've done, exactly.
Hindsight is key. Now we're learning. You know what I mean? So
there's a place for lawyers in your life. I'm looking forward to this presentation.
I'm gonna run out of ink pretty soon because I'm right down. All right, my friends. I'll see you in the Zoom meeting. Thank you guys for watching.